procrastination. The number one challenge in procrastination is the most important lesson I think I learned, and most people should learn when they do an MBA. Okay, what is that?
Mm-hmm.
Human beings, people, only do what they feel like doing. So here's a synopsis in case you haven't been to an MBA 2 years, or you have been, but you were absent that day when they taught this.
Do they really teach it?
Well, I think I learned that.
Okay.
Maybe I had a good teacher in Principles of Management, or maybe I read in some book, a combination. I think I had some good teachers. So people only do what they feel like doing. And your job as a manager is to make people feel like working with each other in the best interest of the company. If you can manage that, you're a manager and you're going to go all the way to the top. Okay. And there are many ways to manage. One is a stick. That doesn't work. That's not management. That's just forcing people, right? But sometimes you have to do a little bit of that. If you can manage people to feel like working without getting distracted, you're the guy or you're the lady. All right. Okay. Now, we have to first accept this. Nobody does anything they don't feel like doing.
Yes.
So the challenge now, how do we feel like not procrastinating? That is the answer we need. But we need to understand the why. Why first? Okay, so the first part. To only do what we feel like doing is another way to say that you are now having an ego hijack. That means your ego, your sense of self, and your feelings combination have now hijacked you, meaning until the ego, which is the center of your feelings engine, right, says, yes, I'm okay with this, you will not do it. No matter how much intellectual sense it makes, because you haven't learned the right relationship between your intellect and your ego. If that relationship is off, meaning, off meaning?
Off balance?
Ego is on top, intellect is below. So intellect says, Mr. Ego, may I suggest that we do this before it's too late? And ego says, yeah, everything is fine. We will get to it. We got plenty of time. I got so many ways to solve that problem. Don't worry. I think we're running late. Stop bothering me. We're fine. We're always fine. If this relationship is off, you're going to be a procrastinator. And when does the ego feel like? In an off relationship, when does the ego feel like doing it? When it can see, oh my God, it's too late. My survival or my reputation or my grades or my boss, something is seriously at risk. Now all of a sudden say, now I feel like doing it. And it doesn't change. This doesn't change. Now I feel like doing it. Intellect, help me. It stays on top. And you do not a great job. But because your ego's on top, it judges by saying, I think we did okay. And I know how to spin it. I know what excuses to give why their work is poor quality. Because their relationship, if it's like this, it stays like this until you learn.
And that learning is
not many. Well, we'll talk about it a little bit.
Yes.
Okay. That learning is important.
That
learning ultimately is, okay, we'll come to that in a quick second. I need to first explain the disease. Okay, now, so elevation starts with the development of thinking. Meaning, even if your ego is on top and your intellect is below, and I give you magically some ability for the intellect to be above, say, I touched you here. Right? What happens if your intellect isn't developed? The ego is sitting here trying to hijack you your whole life. Even if you reverse it, right? The ego sits at the bottom and it's always trying to look for an angle to get on top. Because the nature of the ego is to be on top. Why? Because the ego that you're born with is part of your survival mechanism. So if your intellect has no good answer in a tough situation, the ego says, I'm not going to let you make some random decision. I'm going to decide. I always have a decision for every situation. Usually it's fight or flight. Not let's reason, not diplomacy, not let's do some scientific research, figure out, come up with the right answer. No. Not appreciate intelligent people. No. Ego says, I have an answer. Force that guy to do it. That's it. Or force me to do it. Or blame someone else. Ego. But ego is never without answers. So it takes charge. The minute your intellect is weak, the ego takes charge. Which means you have to first develop your intellect. While it's below, right? In your first 12 years of your life, 16 years, you should be developing. And this full development takes all the way till you're 25 years old. The minute you stop developing your intellect before then, you're going to be less than human. Why? Because this could happen. You will have a balance problem. Sometimes this will be honest, sometimes this, depending on how much develop. But it's not enough just to develop it. You then have to learn how to get above. That has to be also good. Okay? Which means, how do you have a relationship with the ego? Where the ego says, I feel like listening to you. Because the ego is the guy that's saying inside your head, I only do what I
feel like doing.
So, and that program cannot be rewritten. You cannot tell the ego, I'm going to prevent you from feeling. No. So you have to create the situation in your head where your ego says, I feel like listening to the intellect because it helps me become better, smarter. Because the ego has a need to be bigger, better, smarter, more in charge, right? Or just survival. Its survival has to be looked after.
Okay.
That's one way to see it. Another way to see it is when this relationship is just right, the ego is so small. How small? That's the right relationship. There's no ego left.
So what you're saying, what I'm understanding is that ego and intellect, the ego has to be there in order to
in the early
improve.
part of our growth,
Okay.
ego is necessary tool for survival. You couldn't be alive without it for the first 25 or at least for the first 15 years.
Okay. And what if a person or whoever it is, a human being, is after 15 and they have not learned?
They can learn anytime.
Anytime.
Yeah. But they have to learn. If they don't learn, they remain uncivilized at their own level. So nobody is this all the time.
Yes.
Everyone has a little bit of this. Right?
Okay.
Or sometimes, so sometimes if this is your ego, everyone is not like this all the time. Meaning, some people are like this all the time. Some people have this, slight difference, right? Some people have where the ego says to the intellect, because you have developed, right? You have developed, but I'm still in charge. I will now consult you more often. So now that person looks more reasonable in, say, work situations. In work situations, they're able to make decisions for work based on logic, no ego. But when they come home, they are the other person again. That can happen. Right? So I call that different levels of civilization.
Okay.
Most civilized, this and
no ego.
Gone.
Okay.
Gone. Right.
Okay.
Why? Because you realize that I don't need this. The true identity of me as a person is all neither here nor here. Where is it? The true self. The true self, which is the self which can become one with the universe. That is your true self. When that happens, everything is in balance. Okay? But that's your ultimate.
Correct.
But we have to solve our problems of procrastination in the first 18 years of our life first as students. And until we evolve, the first 50 years, 60, 80 years, 100 years, your whole life, this problem remains. The ego is bothering you your whole life. Okay. So first step is the thinking engine must become strong. Thinking engine must become strong.